Good evening once again, and welcome to another episode of Caribbean Feedback. Why am I still hearing music? And everybody jamming.
You're echoing, right?
I repeat, it is not that kind of a party this evening. It is not. How y'all doing today?
Good. Doing well. Good, man. We vibes and everything.
Hold on, am I seeing double here? I'm looking at the names. I'm seeing Chase to the left and Chase to the right.
Chase,
is there any chance you two gentlemen are related?
Yes, sir.
People chasing us, man. People chasing us.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear that response.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're related.
What is the relation?
That is my older brother to my right.
And you claim him?
Yes, I do. Yes.
You actually let people know that is your brother?
Yes, I do. Yes. Yeah. Under risk of prosecution, I claim it.
He's barely an associate, not a friend. Barely an associate. I don't let anyone know that I know him.
Good night, Lucy. Good night, Sherry.
And it would be best for you, sir, that you know.
Welcome, one and all. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We're laughing and we're talking right now. But we're going to heat things up because I'm not feeling too happy about this topic this evening. It doesn't resonate well with me. It does not. So we're going to get in our laughs and smiles right now because I don't anticipate anyone laughing for the duration of this program. Good evening, one and all. Mr. Archer, can you do the introductions, please?
We have Dr. Lance, we have Mark Chase, we have...
You go ahead and keep playing with me. Mr. Mark Chase, could you introduce yourself, please? Tell the people who you are and what it is
Mark
you do.
Chase, I own Chase Audit Services. We provide audit services and accounting services for both federal and private industry, and can be contacted easily over Facebook.
Thank you so much. Do you have something set up for Karin, sir?
Yeah, I think I have something. Let's work it in.
My name is Karin Forrester. I represent Banter Creations. Banter Creations offers beautifully made, African-inspired, lightweight, handcrafted, one-of-a-kind earrings in wonderful shapes, shades, sizes, and colors. Please don't be scared of the large sizes. They're extremely lightweight earrings. Banter Creations can be found on IG and on Facebook as Banter Creations. That's Banter Creations with a K.
Come check me out, chriskeys.com. I'm worldwide.
Tony Altamirano.
Hi, I'm Gina.
What's up, everybody? I'm Win Vu, award-winning remixer.
Koya, I'm an artist.
Hi, my name's Justina Bethel.
Hi, I'm Mike Bowen from Denton, Texas.
How you doing? This is Tom Cup from Music by Tom Cups. Check out Samuel E. Archer's book, Hybrid Executive. We are in the business, and here's how you can be a better business person because you're running your business.
You can find my music at JustinaBeth_EL on Instagram or JustinaBethel.com, and I am a hybrid executive.
I'm a hybrid executive.
I'm a hybrid executive, just like you.
Follow me at Koya Music, and I'm also a hybrid executive.
I'm worldwide, baby, but just know I'm a hybrid executive. That's all you need to know, baby.
Get on up, B.
Check out my music, MikeBowen.com. I'm a hybrid executive.
I'm a hybrid executive.
And I am indeed a hybrid executive. Good night, Dr. Judith. Thank you so much for joining us. What did I offend her? I say good night and she got up and she walked off. Is it something I said?
Yo, this Caribbean feedback is something else.
Is it something I did?
This Caribbean feedback is...
She gonna push. Dr. Judith. Dr. Judith.
Hold on. We got to vibe with this for a while. Let's fully understand what it is going on here. I don't know. Maybe she's making tea for everybody.
Let's observe what's going on here.
I don't know. Maybe she get up to make tea for everybody. I don't know what happened.
Dr. Judith, this is not radio, you know.
I have enough for everybody. Get your
I don't understand.
Out, let me pour.
Did I offend you? Did I offend you?
Listen, guys, all I can say is God is good.
All the time.
I say good night, and you got up and walk away.
No, sir. Good night to you all. God bless you. It's wonderful to see you all. I'm excited about you all. I don't like any of you. Just kidding. I love you all.
Oh, Lord.
And you know, she had the nerve to come back and tell me that didn't happen. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 witnesses.
What did I do?
You got
I said good night, and you turn around and you walk up.
I didn't hear a thing.
I know.
But it was funny. I didn't. Oh, that gave you a little comic relief. Hello,
well,
Mr.
like I said,
Mr. Dr. Lance Chase, how are you, sir?
Good evening, peace and blessings, Dr. Judith. How are you?
Same to you, sir.
Like I said, let's get the laughs in early because we're discussing a very serious topic tonight, and it is no laughing matter.
In that case, I have to go. Sorry.
What?
Dr. Chase, could you
sir.
briefly introduce yourself? Tell the people who you are and what it is you do.
Well, I am an educator by trade, teacher by trade, over 30 years. I spent the last 11 years of my career as an educator, as a school administrator. And sometime, maybe about a decade ago, I endeavored to research the topic of why there was a spike and I in the incidence of students that were Black male students in particular being arrested before they got to high school. And I noticed, this is something that I noticed in my own students. And, you know, I'll be fully transparent. I have both my brother and I have a first cousin that we're very close to who spent a considerable amount of his time in jail. And it was during his time on Rikers Island that he would give me, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the collect calls that you get from correctional institutions, but we
yes, Mark called me one time.
Okay, all right, I got you. Yeah.
Just give us the introduction. We're gonna get into the conversation a little more.
My dissertation topic was the school to prison pipeline, and so it's something that I speak about every time I get the opportunity because it's a real thing. It's something that has plagued our community for decades, and the more we are aware of it, the more empowered we are to do something about it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chase. Our subject matter for tonight: elementary to penitentiary, the school to prison pipeline. Tonight, I have a lot of questions that need to be answered. Can someone please tell me what is it that some of us are doing wrong as Black men, as Black parents? Why is there a disproportionate number of Black men in prison? The penal institution has been privatized in many states across the US, 31 to be exact. A lot of these states have a large African-American population like Georgia, Florida, North, South Carolina, New York, and California, to name a few. while we applaud black women graduating college at a higher rate than us black men, we now have a larger body of female teachers as opposed to male teachers teaching our black boys. I do understand that women are the first teachers of black boys, turning them into black men. But as they grow older in life, that male presence is vitally important, and we lack that in schools. Do we, as a collective, really know what it means to be a man? And if so, are we teaching our black boys the proper lessons that are required for them to transition into manhood? Meanwhile, we have stuff like homicide, suicide, heart disease, wars, street violence, and let's not forget abortions that are destroying black boys at an even more alarming rate.
What is that sound? It's quite disruptive.
I'm sorry, that's gunfire in the background. I'm coming to you live from the Bronx. It's just, don't pay any mind.
Oh, they're practicing for July 4th.
No, we have. We also have homosexuality. That's separating a lot of black boys and black men away from black women. What is happening to our black boys between 3rd and 11th grade as they begin to change direction from having a desire to learn to having a desire to bounce or carry a ball as a career? What are our mothers, our black mothers, teaching our black boys when they affirm that they don't need no man? Oh, you just like your father. You ain't gonna turn out to be any good. What kind of reinforcement is that giving to our black boys? And let us not forget that one becomes disenfranchised due to a felony conviction in this country. Mr. Lance Chase, please tell us.
Well, brother, I think
there a conspiracy? Is there a conspiracy against black boys in America?
Well, first, I want to point out to the panel, I think that you posed something like a 16-part question, if I was keeping track. Something like that. Dr. Judith, am I right?
Yes, sir.
16 parts of that question.
For sure.
But he covered everything. And I think one of the things, that I repeat often when it comes to tackling complex questions the way that you posed it is that context is everything, and we have a very complex social and political context in our country and throughout the diaspora. It doesn't really, it's kind of like variations on the same theme, and they root to a common historical origin, right? But let's take America, because that's where we are. That's the context that we deal with. You bring up a lot of layered questions that are part of the same core, But I mean, the reality is that we live in, our entire lives have been lived in an active crime scene. We're in an active crime scene, and we are a part of that. We were born into the crime scene, and the criminals are in control of the crime scene. And that is manifested through our interaction with the various systems that run our government, right? I focused on one, the school system, because I'm of the mind, and Dr. Judith can chime in, and I'm sure you could speak to this, that the mind, your mind, our minds in particular, are the most meaningful part of our being that we can develop. that where you begin with the development of your mind, everything else will follow. And one mind is so powerful that one individual can impact an entire population, right? So as educators, as an educator, that's the core of my belief. That's why I ask the question, what's happening in schools? Because I was in and a part of the system, and I recognize a lot of the things that you brought up. You know, when I walk into an elementary school, I took over for an elementary classroom for a friend that had broken her leg, and I was the only male in the building.
Wow.
Right?
In the building?
In the building.
Oh,
with the exception of security.
No, security was female also.
Wow.
I was the only male in the building. I believe it was myself and the maintenance guy. Right? And so to your question, all of those are moving parts of the same issue. All of those are moving parts of the same issue. And I think that one of the things that I found in the school system, I'll refer you to a book. Dr. Judith is probably very aware of this book, but I would like to bring it up to the committee. The first seminal work that informed what I did was done by Dr. Kunjufu. The title of it is Reversing the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys. That was Dr.
Countering the conspiracy
Okay.
Thank you.
To destroy Black boys.
And his work speaks to a lot of this. Speaks to a great deal. I mean, almost everything that you brought up, his work dealt with. But I'll focus on the one area that I think that is seminal to all of it. And I just think that school is such an important part because it has such an impactful presence in the developmental lives of Black children that it warrants our attention. I'll let some of the other,
Do you prescribe, Dr. Chase, do you prescribe to the belief system about labeling theory? Are you familiar with the labeling theory?
Give me
when derogatory terms are used towards children, especially minority children, Black children, when they're considered to be criminals long before they even commit an actual crime, that they actually start to embody what their accusers. They start to actually behave in the manner that they're believed to.
Yeah, I do. So thank you for that. I do think that words matter.
Does.
Right. But that's only a part of it, right?
Right.
Because as the old comedian Moms Mabley said, when she comes to a stop sign or a red light, she doesn't look at the light. She looks at the cars because cars hit people, lights don't. So you can call me a scholar, right? I'm called the PhD, right? I'm called the doctor, right? But I'm treated like the man that you see, right? So it's the behavior and not necessarily the title that determines whether a child is supported or not supported in school. I subscribe to it, though. To your question, yes, I think that language is important, but sometimes the educational system can get more into symbol than it does substance. It will say something different every school year, but do the same thing. You know, research was done indicating that small schools were better, you know, for student development. So what did they do? They took large comprehensive high schools, sectioned them off, called each section of the same building a small school, but yet you have 4,000 kids going into the same entrance, going to the same metal detector, and all of the same practices of the large comprehensive high school. So what have you done? You know, a small school in a big building with big building procedures is nothing but a big school in drag. You know?
And basically teaching the same curriculum.
Right. Well, I mean, but listen, there are people, they'll double speak. There is a double speak, you know, and it has everything to do with the money behind education. Like in the city of Mount Vernon, when I was last there as an educator, they were spending $18,000 per child per school year. Now it's probably gone up a little bit, right? So let's say for argument's sake, it's gone up to, I don't know, 25 a year. The city of New York will spend over $100,000 a year to lock a kid up. What you do and how you spend your money is a sign of your priorities, right? Education follows the same thing. So to the sister's point again, the labeling makes a difference. The language of education makes a difference. The names of programs make a difference, you know. But if you take the same building, you paint it differently, you take the old name off of the school and put academy at the end, call all of the kids scholars, but they're essentially getting the same thing. There is a change in symbol, but not substance.
Now, do you agree that back in the 90s, when there were a lot of school shootings all over the U.S., do you agree that because they brought police officers or school resource officers, which are essentially the same thing, is that where that zero tolerance policy started and where everything started to go down the drain as far as making that pipeline a more direct route?
That's not where it began.
Right? Where did it begin?
It began with, and I get what you're saying. So the zero tolerance is like a trickle. It is a policy trickle down from the war on drugs, right? Mm-hmm. But really, there has been a disciplinary disparity in schools for a very long period of time, right? Particularly if you look at communities that were segregated, that were integrated. Integrated. You can look in a building in like an integrated city like New Rochelle, or an integrated school district like Mark and I were in District 2 in Lower Manhattan, which was, for the most part, integrated. You had Jewish children, you had Puerto Rican children, you had, Black children and sprinkling of Black children of Caribbean descent. That would be my brother and I, right? But those children of color in that building had a different application of the rules, a vastly different application of the rules. That those rules were put in place to manage the others, to manage the children of color, to manage boys in particular. So to your point about manhood and defining masculinity and what it is and all of that, you tell me what you think. For those of us that attended schools in the United States, public schools, my view from my own experience is that public schools and their policies manage Black male masculinity.
May I want to share something, and it involves what you're saying, Dr. Chase, and it has Dr. Lance, and what Curtis asked. And as you've been talking, my mind is just tracing a path. I'm looking at a path.
Okay.
And what a lot of the schools in, you say, the middle class areas, whether it's in the South or in the North, the Blacks who are in the poor areas of those, whether it's New York City, Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, here in Georgia, Atlanta, wherever the poorer people are. The goal is always to move up. You remember the show and the Good Times or whatever, moving on, not the other one.
The Jeffersons.
Moving on up to the east. That's the goal of most of us, people that look like us, whether we're Caribbean or we are African Americans. So what happens, and I've seen it happen here, very, very obvious, is that the goal is to move up. And as the Blacks move up, because one of the things that we want are better schools, and the white areas have better schools, and the white areas have better supermarkets. The prices in the quote unquote, they have better supermarkets in terms of the prices are lower. And the things that we pay triple and double for is of lower value, quality. They pay less for it. So the goal is always to move up. But what happens, the phenomenon is as we move up, the white folks move out. Right? Where I used to live in Stelville, Georgia, watch the pattern. These older whites who have had their houses for 30, 40 years, paid off for them, and the Blacks moving in, paying $1,000 a month mortgage. And the whites that were living there were paying $300, $400 a month because they paid for the house already. So what happens is that we move in, a lot of us trash these places. That's just real. We trash the places. The white people puts us out. Another Black set comes from Decatur and DeKalb and all these predominantly Black area, and they move in again. And I keep telling white folks, I say, you're going to fall off the edge of the earth because you keep trying to move away from us. So then the schools, what happens is the Black kids go into the schools. You watch the schools become predominantly Black. What happens at that point? The teachers, the quality of the teachers change. The whites that are there are not particular to be there. They're not of the highest caliber, the whites that are in the predominant Black school. They remember it when it was all white. They yearn for that day that it was all white, but it's now all Black or mostly Black. So what happens is, as this economy has changed and more women working, a lot of white guys aren't working anymore. A lot of white guys have lost their jobs, even in banks. Young Black men are taking them over. And what happened? A lot of white women are now working when they weren't working 40, 50 years ago. As the white women become teachers, what happens, I've seen it and I know it's true, is that these resource officers, these police guys and women, they come in to protect the white teachers, the female teachers. Nobody can take that from me. I've seen it. It's a pattern. And most of them are black. These are Black officers. And some of them are just as aggressive and difficult as the white officers are towards the Black kids. So this is what I've seen continually. I mean, it's a growing trend. The white women, what they do to our black boys, remember they come from home with a mother that might be, she's the one parent or whatever. She might be trying to hold them to some kind of rules and regulations or whatever. But they go to school with a white teacher who's so afraid of him, they're trying to appease him. Just in case he might go off on me one day. So they offer them goodies. They offer them candy. They share money with these kids. I mean, I've seen it. So what we have is a dumbing down of our black boys. They're giving them things to shut them up. They're giving them things to appease them so they can work in an environment where they're not afraid. These officers are not in the school to protect black teachers. They're there for the female white teachers. That's what they're there for. And I've seen white teachers, females, and a black teacher admitted it to me before we ended school the other day. They're destroying our boys. They're enabling them and further disabling them. And that's a trend. And whether it's up north or down here, it is happening. And we are not speaking up. Because I truly believe that when we had black teachers predominantly, see, let me tell you, I have a problem with black folks. I'm about to write something, an article or something, and I'm saying I'm angry at black folks. I know that racism is real, but I'm angry at black folks that we keep chasing this crap, that we keep chasing these people, that we chase where they live, we chase everything about them. Why can't we maintain our own? Why can't we be strong enough to develop a school, to work on that, and stay in our neighborhoods and take care of our neighborhoods? Why in God's name are we always chasing their dream? Why can't we make this our stuff? And that goes with the school system, as well as our everyday living. Black folks are irritating me as an individual black person because we continue to look to white people for approval. We keep looking them to affirm us. What are they affirming us for? They don't even have the kind of heart that we got. And we keep looking to them. And we put our children in these schools. And I'm telling you, these white teachers, we have a black principal at our school, 3,000 students. And very few of those white teachers have respect for him.
Mm-hmm.
But then, let me tell you the game he plays. He wants these black kids who can play sports. And I said to him one day, I made a mistake of saying to him, I would like for you guys to address these guys who are going to the football and basketball to have some kind of setup where they understand that they don't have to play basketball, they don't have to play football. They have a mind. Maybe they should do something else. Or at least have somebody to advise them how to spend this money that they're being promised they're going to make. He walked away from me because he wants the records. He wants to be known that his school has all these sports, these young boys are going into sports. So I'm sorry, we are our own worst enemy. I'm tired of talking about white folks. I'm tired of talking about them because we are helping them. We're helping them.
My brother a question. When we were young, we were in Bedford-Stuyvesant in a very segregated world. And everyone that was around us were black folks. Teachers were black. The barber was black. Everybody was black and mostly Caribbean. We moved to Manhattan, to 287 Avenue C. And the world changed. The world changed. Now I've noticed with my own kids in keeping them in that sort of segregated environment where people care about your success. Yet they say, oh, that's a C school or that's a D school. But they're treated like human beings rather than numbers. What is the divide and where should parents go to do the best for their children?
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. And my brother and I talk all the time, and we have similar, angst about, having to decide, Ta-Nehisi Coates, and I'll paraphrase him from his book, The Beautiful Struggle. One of the things that he talked about was having to decide, as a native of West Baltimore, to leave the community that he came from for the physical safety of his children, but then imperiling them in a social, psychological, and emotional way by isolating them in a community that is not really their own. That happens at that whole moving on up syndrome that Dr. Judith alluded to is something that we see that play itself out. It's like a drama we see play out with all of these people that ascend to all of these heights, and the higher they go, the more isolated they become. Like when Kanye lost his mind. I was like, he doesn't have any of his boys with him from Chicago. Somebody that one to lean over to the other was, somebody please go get that nigga. Mm-hmm. Nobody was there to say that. He was by himself, losing his mind around a group of people that didn't understand him, didn't know his context. They don't know his neighborhood. They don't know who he is. And just like that black principal that you alluded to, because I've been in that position multiple times where you're dealing with a faculty that wants to question everything that you say or do. And that's on both sides, both the black folks and the white folks.
Right.
So he's in that black principal is in an unenviable position, right? Because he's playing in a game whose rules are not designed for him to succeed. And he is the most visible and the one that all of the teachers at your school, probably yourself included, all have tenure, right? He's on borrowed time.
Right.
He's on borrowed time, and he's keenly aware of that. So that informs a lot of the decisions that they make. And when it comes to our children, because I interviewed a lot of boys that were of high school age when I was doing my research. And there was this one boy in particular that I interviewed. Of course, I didn't name him, but he said he remembered one time that something was stolen at the school. And he was blamed for it. And he wasn't even in school that day. And, it got to the point where the discipline the way the discipline was done at the school, once he had earned a certain reputation, he said to me, and these are his words, one day he just decided, you know what, I'll be that nigga. I will be him. And to some extent, we see that play out a lot. Like if that way to acceptance and assimilation is to be a ball player, right? I'll be that.
Dr. Chase,
I go, what is the path of least resistance for me?
Dr. Chase, are you a father?
Yes, of 3.
Boy, any boys?
Yes.
Tell us, how do you caution your black son?
Well, I check in with God a lot. Because I don't, there are things as well read as I am, as informed as I am, as much advice as I give.
Amen.
As much guidance as I give. there are forces in this world and in
Yes,
this
sir.
society that are so numerous, so embedded, so much a part in the air, in the water. I have told my children things that I did that was so powerful, that was so dark. They didn't want to believe them. They didn't want to believe them. I tell them one thing, and they go to school and they're learning that they're in a post-racial society. Brother, it's a work in progress. I check in with Black Jewish Jesus every opportunity that I get, and I say, brother, I'm at a loss. So to your question, for my boy, who has had the roughest time of all three of my children, as things come up in real time, I am a guy, where he leans one way, he's unstable. I'm a staff. I am a source of healing when he gets the ass whipping that I told him was coming. It's hard when and if you're a New Yorker, you can relate to this. If you know a fight is coming, if you're walking into your building, you're getting ready to get in the elevator, and you know that there are people in there waiting for you, then you can get ready. You can go in your book bag, get 2 D batteries, put them in a sock, and you could, knuckle up, guard your grill, or avoid the elevator. You know what's there. If you don't believe that there are aggressive forces against you,
yes, sir.
Oh, the beating.
Yes, sir.
The beating you will get.
Yes,
it's
sir.
bad. So that has been the experience of my.
I remember a couple of years ago, I can't remember if it was a documentary, but something on television where a Black father was almost boasting how he teaches he doesn't allow his 2 sons to wear any t-shirt with a print on it because it attracts the attention of police officers. He doesn't allow his sons to walk to the basketball court bouncing a basketball because it attracts the wrong element. He even boasted to the fact that he walks differently. To me, the brother was a total idiot. He walks on his heels first because he doesn't want to appear threatening to police officers and to white folks. How can we teach our children to remain true to themselves as to they are in fact young Black boys? We cannot take that away. As opposed to trying to indoctrinate them into something else to the point where you want to take away their Blackness. Don't walk with a certain flavor. Don't have that rhythm to your walk because it says the wrong thing. I don't think the police looks at that. They don't look beyond this.
Here's a question for the panel to think about, right? And this is something that we contend with as a community. Well, what is Blackness?
Thank you.
What is it?
Thank you.
What is it?
Thank you.
Because when we come to see, because a term was used, right? That, for instance, that I don't agree with, right? And that's African American. It's inaccurate and it's implicitly deceptive because I'm not an African American.
Right.
I know African Americans. I have a friend, James Massacoy. James Massacoy is an African American because he's from Africa. he migrated to the United States, became a naturalized citizen of the United States. I'm not an African American. I'm an American of African descent by way of the Caribbean. But you know what I'm saying, right? So, but we repeat things like this. Why? Because we have a desire to assimilate. It's in the air and it's in the water. You know, we want acceptance. We want full citizenship. We ain't got it yet.
Acceptance from whom? By who?
You know who.
Yeah. Well, put it like this. If there is a population, regardless of, let's take all labels and nationalities off. If there is a population who is in control of most of the resources, most of the economy, most of the property, most of the organizations, and they are the framers of every definition that we have. There's a doctor, there's a brother who was a doctorate at FAMU that was my niece's professor. And he said, if you think for a minute that we think in the language of our oppressor, that even our thoughts are colonized.
I agree.
That's how deep it goes.
I agree.
So that's why you have certain parts to your question, brother. I understand it. I see you. I feel you. That's why there's 16 parts to it, because it's complex.
But don't you think, Dr. Lance, that we see ourselves through their eyes? That's part of our problem.
Yes.
That's part of our problem. Yes. We do not see ourselves as we are. We see ourselves through the white man's perception of us. Let me tell you something. Everywhere that I've been in this country, whether it's to school, I've gone to St. John's University, and I went to Iona where I did my master's. And most of those places that I've been, at the time when I went to St. John's, it was 1973. It was mostly whites then. The thing is, okay. Okay. The thing is that I've never been to any place, and it's because I'm not from here originally. I know that. I'm used to seeing people who look like me in government, running the country. Now, even though they got their own color issues, which they Jamaicans especially try to deny, it's there. I came through it. I lived through it. The fact of the matter is that we all, put it even amongst blacks, anything light is all right. Anything brown, you stick around, and black, you step back. Those are realities in our lives. I truly believe every time we have a discussion on any of these things, my mind always goes back. Until one at a time, we accept what we do as black folks, we ain't going nowhere. It's not a group that does this. It's one person at a time. And until we stop looking at white people, Lyndon Johnson said many, many years ago, he said the poorest white man thinks he's better than the richest black man. He said the poorest white man thinks that it doesn't matter how poor he is, doesn't matter if he doesn't have an education, he's better than the richest and the most educated black man. The problem is not that the white man thinks that. The problem is we are bought into that. The problem is that we look at, why is it that black folks will rip off their own? They have no fear of the law coming at them for that. Because it's just another nigga that you messed with. Just one of your own. But they don't want to be messing with the white folks because the cops going to come to you for the white folks. It's not just that is happening. It's that black people believe in that behavior. They do this right now in Atlanta. The killings.
I'm sorry to inform you. I'm sorry, but I'm not part of that collective we that you speak about.
Well, listen. You know what I mean. You're an individual, and you have your.
I am the exception to that rule.
But I cannot sit here and individualize everybody. You know what I mean.
let
There are
me
people
let
who are
me
going to
let
be
me ask.
outside. There are going to be people who are outside of what I'm saying. Okay.
Let me pose this question, and I'm going to pose it to Mr. Henry. You've got male children. Okay, they are in school. They're in school, and they are going to be judged harshly. How are you going to keep them out of that school to prison pipeline? What is it you're going to do something different? That's the question I pose to you, and then I'll kick it. You can kick it back to my brother. I think there are a lot of parents out there that are saying, well, how the hell do I beat this? Or is there a way to beat it?
By constantly reinforcing to them who they are, who they know who their first teachers are, who are their parents who are raising them inside of the house, inside of that household. And no matter what you may hear on the outside, my word and my teaching at all times should supersede that. You will learn other things on the outside, but always revert to what it is you learned at home. My grandmother has a saying, charity begins at home and ends abroad. In Jamaica, you say, learn for dance a yard before you learn for dance abroad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That teaching that you receive in that household should be your first line of defense at all times. Never divert from that. And I make sure that I continue to reinforce that from the cradle to the grave.
Mm-hmm.
At no point of time in their life, I don't care if they're married, if they move on, do I ever stop teaching.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask something, Curtis?
What if someone intervenes in your teaching? Okay. My brother's aware of this. I'm aware of this. It's happened to my children. It's happened to me. It's happened to him. Where I had a lady named Miss Rosa who decided I was too dumb to be able to read, and that I got someone to write letters for me and so on and so forth, and wanted to suspend me. So as a parent, you have your teaching. Your children understand where they are. But how do you negotiate them through the larger society that doesn't give a damn about them, and in fact wants to castigate them and send them through that pipeline off to the prison of their choice? That's what I wanted to hear. I understand your teaching. I know you're a good brother.
Mark,
but what are you going to do?
Mark, I remember back in the 80s, there was a program called Scared Straight. I don't know how many of you all can recall that program.
Yeah, of course.
I often ask the question, would something like this be effective today? Because what is happening, a lot of our children are becoming desensitized to the realities of crime and punishment. A lot of them get caught up. We have some big men today still playing video games, where you're in a shootout, you have Grand Theft Auto, and you steal a car and you run over a police officer and you kill somebody and you die and you get another life and you go again. They seem to get caught up between fantasy and reality. My Scared Straight program is at home. You will not fear. I don't teach my children to fear me, but you will respect me and understand that there are consequences and repercussions for your actions. Should you transgress beyond the laws of the home, beyond my law, because society has a place waiting for you called the penitentiary. And once they begin to understand from inside that there are consequences and repercussions to be paid for transgressing the bounds of the law, that is the teaching that they will take outside with them. Because once you're in that school, there is a higher order that you have to face once you get out of that system, once you come off that street, and that's me.
Right. And Doctor,
today, let me finish with this. Today, if you ask, I have one uncle from my mother's side that's still alive. And if you talk to him, he will still, he's what, in the 70s, 77, somewhere there. And he will still speak with a certain amount of reverence for his mother, my grandmother. Because of the teaching and that iron fist that she ruled with. None of them went to jail. As harsh as she was, as abusive as she was, as we may look back at it, none of them went to jail. They remembered who was the higher authority. That brings up the conversation about corporal punishment, whether or not that is right or wrong. And I tell my children, these were the older four, the elders. If you ever make that mistake and pick up the telephone and dial 911, tell them to send an ambulance also. Because I'm going to work you over until the police get here. Don't just call the cops. Send an ambulance for you also. Because I prefer to be the one going to jail for steering you right than to allow you to take your own path and end up in prison. Then I would have failed as a parent. Mark?
So brother and I had a conversation before the show. He asked me a question about corporal punishment, you know, and when that came up, I said, you know, context is important, because if the context does not support it, then that isolates you and your family and puts your family at risk. Because many a time in the corridors of Rikers Island, I have seen father and son greet one another in the corridor. And you know, now I don't know, you know, I don't ask what the stories are behind that. Could be a cyclical thing. But one of the things that Dr. Margaret Beale Spencer pointed out was that there are in society what she called risk factors and protective factors. That guidance that Brother Henry provides for his kids in the household is a protective factor.
Right.
The things that exist outside of the household, at the school, the policies within the school, the police in the community, those are all risk factors. And there are a ton of them. So that's why I say, when Brother Henry asked me about what I do for I pray a lot. I pray a lot. You know, I provide, and like he said, I don't teach them to fear me. I teach them to respect me. But I'm cognizant of all these other forces that there are. And I'm not only cognizant on the level of from my own personal experience, but I know that as Dr. Judith pointed out in the examples that she gave, of all of the organizational and structural things that there are in place that are designed to mitigate
what you do,
the fact that we're at an active crime scene, that we're descendants of a population that were kidnapped from their homeland and the crime, and it involves kidnap, it involves murder, it involves rape.
Rape.
And the biggest crime that we all deal with is identity theft.
No. Listen, as a single woman raising my son, I can tell you that some of the greatest fight I get is from women. Some of the greatest fight that I get is from women. The Jamaican man has issues with a strong woman. One of my nephews just admitted that to me the other day. I mean, like I didn't see it, but he was talking to me about some serious stuff. And he was saying to me that his uncles, my brothers, have that same issue. So a woman like myself is a problem. Jamaican guy said to me once some years ago, he said, how would you look having one man all to yourself? I said, how do you look having one woman all to yourself? These kind of ignorant, stupid statements, as far as I'm concerned, I resent it. I have a lot of resentment as I grow older because I thought Jamaican men were changing. I thought they were becoming more enlightened, and maybe it's a cover-up. I don't know. But I say that to say, I have raised my son with the help of God. And I tell everybody, I said, you don't have to agree. I got proof. I have proof that he's alive. I have proof that he has brought me through a lot of stuff that would have been totally different if I just leaned on my own understanding. Right. But one of the things that I have to come up against, when my son was 4 years old, I put him out of the house. And as I was doing it, it hurt me. And I literally told him to pack and get out. Because at 4, he was talking some garbage to me that just, it didn't sound French, it didn't sound Jamaican, it didn't sound no way intelligent at 4 years old. So I said, you got to go. So he was packing. Now I tell people, when you're talking to your children, you got to have the mind that whatever you threaten to do, be willing to do it. Because they need to see that you follow through. And so I told him, get out. He's in his room, packing his bag. And my heart is full, but I know I have to go through it. And I said, you're taking too long. And I started throwing things in the bag. I gave him his bag. He walked out there, and I closed the door. I locked the door. He's standing on a little entrance to the house. He's standing right there, and he's weeping. Now, they talk about a mother's heart. Well, the heart is deceptive, and we need to face that. All this feeling thing doesn't make a child do better. And I watched him stand there. I called my brother. I said, Winston, come and get Karin. My mom lived 3 doors away from me. I said, take him over there. Don't tell him that I said anything to you. Don't tell him that I told you to do this. He took him over there. And as Winston walked up the walkway to come to the front of the house, I heard him say to Karin, shut up. Because if you hadn't done something crazy, your mom wouldn't have put you out. 4 years old. And Winston took him to my mom's. I had a speaking engagement that night. It was a Friday night. I came out maybe after 9 or so. I could have gone and gotten him. But I recognized that I had to follow this thing through. I recognized that I had to see. It hurt this heart of mine. But I knew what I was doing was important. It wasn't about all this lovey-dovey stuff. This is, like you said, Dr. Lance, listen, the forces of evil are real. They're out, they're here. And if people don't believe that, it's not just the people that you see. It's the people that you ain't seen. That's how type of you worry about dead people. Dead people are not my problem. So he stayed over there. He stayed over the whole night. At 7 o'clock the next morning, he called me. Mommy, can I come home? It hurt me again to know that I let him stay out all night because my natural thing was to go get him when I came back. But we're not living in natural times. These are not good times, even back then. And I said, do you remember why I did what I did? He said, yes, Mommy. I said, you going to do it again? He said, no. And I looked through my bedroom window and watched my little boy with his little bag walk back to the house. And he never knew I cried. It's not his business. He don't have to know I cried. And I don't boast in people. I boast in Christ. My son is 24 years old. And he finished college. He's got a full-time management job. And I'm not taking credit for that. Because he could have gone another way. He has the choice. But I do believe that what my son remembers is that he's got a mother that says consequences are available to all of us. I told him one day, I said, keep messing with me, I'm going to throw you down the stairs and call defects myself. You understand? And I don't play with people. Excuse me?
What I've heard my brother say and what I've heard you say, Dr. Judith, I was never much on prayer. I fight. I fight. When I would get a silly note home from the elementary school for my son that I knew was not his character or his demeanor, I would go down to the school. Now, not all of us have that ability. You know, we have to go to work, we have to do a lot of things. I was fortunate enough to have the time and the opportunity. And I had a very interesting meeting with my son's 5th grade teacher. I had it with myself and my son's mother, and the teacher said, well, it's difficult when a child is going to a new school and is dealing with a one-parent home. Now, both parents were in the room. He had been in the school from the 1st grade. But this was the scenario she was going to set forth. Denise very calmly said, he's never moved from one school to another. That's his father right there. He lives in the home. This is not a new school. And she immediately ran out and got the principal, who had a file going through it and canceled the parent-teacher meeting. But I was willing to go to the school board and sit in front of them. I say all this, and it's a true story. Monitor. Doesn't matter what you do in your house. You can have whatever rules you got in your house. But you see, here, the Hillsborough County Sheriff got a whole nother rule. The school board has a whole nother rule. The teachers have a whole nother rule. Monitor. But
everything that what Brother Curtis described, and Mark, I'm very familiar with that story. You called me up when that was happening. And what Dr. Judith described are all examples of what Dr. Margaret Beale Spencer calls protective factors. Those are all protective factors. That her method of dealing with her young man at a very early age, letting him know what the parameters were in the household, and that he was never to go outside. That had an impression of him, so that now that he's 24, he has those same parameters. He doesn't go outside of it. He doesn't go outside of them. Randy is the same way. Brother Curtis is the same way in dealing with his 5 and mine.
Allow me. Let me interrupt you for a second, Dr. Chase.
Yes.
Mark touched on something very important a minute ago in terms of being involved.
Yeah.
Being involved and challenging the system. Allow me to bring Karin in on this conversation. Could you explain to us, Karin, what you did recently when it came to the school's decision that they made and you decide to challenge it, as opposed to just sitting back and accepting what it is they said it's okay and what law or decisions that they decided to make and what happened when you challenged the system?
I've been in this country for several decades now, and I realized a long time ago that anything placed in writing must be attended to. I don't accept what people say as, the rule, because anything can be changed if the argument is strong enough. They, after a year and a half of COVID-19 pandemic restrictions, felt that they were just not going to advance the 2-year-old to the 3rd grade because he'd been so restless for like the last 5-6 months. I did everything supportive of the teacher that I could, and I spoke with her. And then I wrote the principal and the assistant principal and was going to forward everything to the district 5 person that covers for Broward County, because I wasn't going to accept them leaving him behind. His socialization has changed so much. He's been although he has his brothers, his ability to communicate with other children has been adjusted negatively so much that I wasn't going to accept them. And I let them know that in the letter. I do not agree with this, and I will not accept this. So, because had they not done what I wanted, I would have taken it to Runcie, who's the superintendent that is heading out of office, but he's still there. He's still there. So I would have taken it as far as that,
Right.
And they sort of know me a little bit,
Yep.
So I wasn't going to accept it. I just wasn't.
I think that's one of the things, Karin, when he failed the 3rd grade. And I remember a couple of things happened to him. And they wanted, even since we've been here in Georgia, they told me that he was special. They wanted to put him on the special needs. They're going to do an IEP on him. And they wanted to put him on Ritalin. And I said, I'll tell you what you do. You take the Ritalin. He's not taking it. I said, as far as I know from working in the prison system, this Ritalin stuff, some of it predisposes these young people to other drugs, desire for other drugs. And you're not opening his appetite with that Ritalin. You're not, because I believe that's what it does. So I said, you're not going to do that. And so then they said, I said, you're not putting him on special needs either, special education, because they ain't nothing. He's got issues, but it ain't that bad. I said, I got some gray here. I'll get some more on his behalf. And I think one of the problems, like what you said, Karin, I think one of the problems, I heard about a woman a few days ago, threw her children out the window, and then she was naked and threw herself out right behind them. And now she obviously got some kind of mental health issues going on, and this COVID, lots of stuff is happening. But people have given up on children. It ticks me off. That's where I feel. Children are so at risk these days for so many different things. The killings, the amount of children are being killed carelessly, different things happening. And I think part of our whole problem in this society, America is screwed. I'm sorry. That's my opinion in a lot of ways. But we don't have that sacrificial piece in us anymore to sacrifice for our children. And when they told me this stuff, I told them, I said, listen, he will not take none of that stuff, and I will not have him on special education. I said, I'm going to get some more gray here, but he'll be fine. And let me tell you something, I believe, when you fight for another human being, the child, and they know you're fighting for them, even if they have a deficit, they're going to rise up because they know you're advocating for them. And I think that's what my son did. I think he made a decision because he told one kid one time, my mother don't play. And those are the places that I go that I use my title. That's when I'm Dr. Barnes, because I do whatever is necessary. But what they don't know about me is that I'll fight for another child just like I fight for my son. Let me know about it. And I will go to the school and I will fight for another child just as hard as I fight for my own. And I think, you talk about the community. We used to have that kind in our community that if you saw your child doing somebody else's child, now they sue you if you tell them, what are you watching my child for? all this crap. So you can't even look out for other people's children anymore because there's so much suspicion and trouble and problems. But guys, I'm gonna tell you, I mean, I'm home from school. I'm not, I'm off for 2 months, and a lot of time just thinking. And I really and truly believe, like what Curtis was saying, and what Dr. Lance is saying, and you, Karin, and Mark, is that the most important and powerful thing for any of us to do in our life, if you want anybody to be affected by what you're doing, live it. Just live it. Because that's when you can talk to a child forever. But when they see you're living what you're saying, it's easier for them to follow. It's easier for them to emulate. And I truly believe, and and every time we get into this kind of thing, I go back, I hear myself. I said, Judith, you go back to the same thing again. Black folks need to wake up. Black folks need to stop. There is a path to the penitentiary. What are we doing to cut into that path? What are we doing about it? White people are racist. What are we doing to like ourselves better? The clothes don't do it. That's not going to fix us. The cars ain't fixing it. No matter what people do to us, and I've had an issue in my personal life recently that points directly to that. You can do whatever you want to do to me. I will stand on what I believe about me. When are we going to have a core belief about ourselves? Whether we come from Nigeria, we come from Ghana, or we come from Jamaica or Trinidad. When are we going to have a cooperative belief about ourselves that does not involve the white man? Too much that we do is predicated on what he does.
Right.
And they're not that interested in us. They're only interested when we annoy them. They're only interested when you break into their neighborhood. Right. Otherwise, they really don't count us.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, yes, they do what they do, but when are we going to do what we need to do? When are we going to stop the crab in the barrel mentality that every time one of us rise up, you try to pull us down? When are we? Because white folks only have a foothold because of how we treat each other. Because if we were more secure among ourselves, they couldn't get it. They couldn't do the stuff they're doing.
Yeah. There are certain people that I talk to, that are of that mind, that believe that we're just in an untenable position, as Black folks, and like brother Henry said, I didn't take French in my high school, so when you say we, I don't know who you're talking about. I know that for myself, one of the things that I got, and I thank God for Howard University, which is my intellectual home. It at least taught me how to curb my intellectual diet and be mindful and at least filter the things that come in and out of my mind. And that includes everything said, the people I surround myself with, the things that I read, the things that the information that I take in, I vet it, and because there is, just as spirits, we get stuff thrown at us almost to the point that we forget that we are intentional and unique creations by God.
Thank you.
By God.
Thank you.
And everybody has some element of their being.
Thank you.
That gets contributed. And kids, right? So Dr. Judith and I are of the same tribe. My son didn't realize that down here in the South Bronx, before we even migrated up to Westchester, that there are all of these grown people in this neighborhood that came up to him and said, "Do you know that your father was my teacher?" And he looked at me as like, "Dad, I didn't even really know you. I didn't know who you were. I didn't know the impact that you had on other people." And I said, "Yeah, well, that's who your father is. And, you know, it's that recognition that, you know, gave him to at least expand his mind and think back on all of the things that he was a part of his teaching. But, you know, it's, you know, you say that the ignorant have challenges when it comes to making decisions. Well, sometimes those of us that are very intelligent have a tougher time because we're convinced that we know.
Allow me to bring Sam, Mr. Archer. Your mic. Unmute your mic for a second.
I'm sorry about that.
As an artist, as a writer, speak on something for me. A lot of us as parents, as adults, we tend to blame culture. We tend to blame music. We tend to blame movies because they influence our children. Let me ask you the question, does life imitate art, or does art imitate life? When we write a song about what's happening in society, or a rapper write a song and put it out there, some of the older heads, we say, listen to what they're talking about. I don't want that to influence my child. But as an artist, where does that inspiration come from? Are the artists singing and recording what is already happening in life? So does art imitate life, or life imitating art?
Do you live to eat or eat to live?
I eat to live.
So you eat to live long enough so you can eat again. So it's the same thing with life imitating art and art imitating life. You have, you know, a little dichotomy there. But in reference to artists, let's just break down the whole artist thing real quick and keep it confines the subject. A recording artist does not enjoy what an actor would enjoy. Like, you'll have an actor in one movie, he's a bank robber. In the next movie, he plays Jesus. In the next movie, he's a good husband. In the next movie, he's a murderer. He can change characters with the movies. A songwriter and an artist is supposed to be able to do the same thing. But somehow, if an artist has a certain character, people want to see him or her remain in that character. You know, so if you're doing a certain genre, and then, you know, you want to venture off and do, you know, let's say you do R&B, and then you want to venture off and do country western. Somebody might say, but you're an R&B artist. But no one really looks at an actor and say, well, you just do drama, or you just do action, or you just do this, or you just do that. So the artist has a situation where he or she, the listening audience, tries to force them into that role. But to bring it to the what we're talking about. Many people who grew up in strict homes, the music was restricted. So you might hear an artist, you know, when they come of age, talk about, well, when they were younger, they couldn't listen to certain records, or they couldn't listen to certain genres of music, or their parents didn't like rap, or their parents didn't like disco, or their parents didn't like this. So it affected their outlook. Some people either went all the way left when they became an adult, when they had some freedom, or they went all the way right, you know, when they had some freedom. So truth be told, music to some degree don't really affect, you know, somebody's outcome in terms of if they're going, you know, if somebody has a certain character, then that's the character that they have. the music, it may play a role, but the magnitude of music playing that role, like, I listened to the song and the guy said jump off of a building, so I went into the building and jumped off. I mean, to a degree, who really follows that?
But Sam, may I share this with you? Yes. I have almost a fear of music, the power of music, because to me, music it's powerful. It depends on what kind of music and stuff. But music for me, because when I hear music that moves me, I literally can go into another place.
Yes, you can.
And so I think maybe it has to do with what Dr. Lance says. If you're fairly, and I don't know if intelligent is the word, but whatever it might be, I personally stay away from music to a certain degree because I know it can transport me to places that I can't afford to go or stay there for long. That's my perception of art and music and behaviors and stuff. Music is powerful in influencing people. The other part of it is that a lot of people don't necessarily recognize that the music is influencing them. Because I can tell you, that thing in my ear, music in my ear, and then somehow my brain gets affected by it. I could do just about anything except for what I know as consequences, or I've been raised. When we were children in Jamaica, they didn't want us to hear Bob Marley. Bob Marley's a dirty Rasta boy, so they call it. It's only when the outsiders, when Europeans and all those that started embracing Bob Marley, that Black people, Jamaicans, even really wants to boast about Bob Marley. I know a Jamaican woman right now who she tried to hide it from me, and she tries to pass her white hair. She don't have to tell me, I can tell. And she talking about something about Rasta, and you could see her face change.
Yeah.
She was so disgusted. I'm dirty. I said, let me tell you something. Rastafarians that I have known, and I have a brother who's a Rastafarian, some of the cleanest, physically cleanest people I've ever met. So stop scandalizing them. It's not true. And I know my father didn't want us to listen to Bob Marley, because music is powerful. Music can make you leave your house and go with a guy you ain't supposed to be going nowhere with. It can make you run away with a girl you ain't supposed to run away with. Music is not something to play with.
Well, you see, let me respond to that. There's a catalyst in the scientific equation. If we're gonna go that deep with it, there's a catalyst that there's a certain understanding, and again, it's the reason why an artist has to stay within the confines of what folks know him or her as. So when an actor or an actress could play various roles, the musician or the artist can't enjoy that thing, because what they bring to the table, folks need to let them remain in that area. So yes, music is powerful. I jokingly call musicians like myself lords of sound. There's a lot of things we could do with sound. We go to a church service, and you play certain songs that I'll go to certain churches and play some hymns, and it will create a whole mood. No, it doesn't mean that I am creating a mood. You know what I'm doing? I'm tapping into their memory. I'm tapping into something that, this is the song my grandmother used to sing, or this is the song my father used to sing, or this is the song when they will when they'll do this, or this is the song when they'll have baptism, or this is the song when I give my life. So when I tap into all these hymns, I'm not really doing anything much, but what I'm doing with the sound is that melodically, it's taking them to that place. So it's sort of like a psychological thing.
Well, I'm going to say this to you, that you go to that place before you take them there. Let me. You understand what I'm saying? Before you take them to that place, you already are there. Because you can't give something, you can't share something with somebody that you don't possess.
Well, I was going to tell you one time, just to show you the power of it. One time, I'm in a Christmas backyard fete, and there's a conga drum there, right? And so the calypso playing in the background, and I am beating this conga, and people are dancing, and based on how I beat that conga in the party, it could control how people dance.
Yes, sir.
Right. So there is
also bring it back. This is what I'm saying. So, I need for you all to see the relation with what the question I asked to the topic that we discussing.
But we're getting to it, Curtis. He's
in terms of that positive reinforcement and how someone can buy into those influences that you keep giving them. Dr. Lance spoke about that earlier on in terms of somebody embodying what is constantly being said to them, where they become that because somehow, okay, well, since you want me to be this, then I am going to be that. So yes, that music does have that power. It does have that influence. And life in turn will imitate that art form by what it is you projecting as an artist.
I'm gonna agree with my brother.
I'm sorry?
And I'm gonna agree with Samuel. I'm gonna agree with them both. But I'm gonna remind my brother that my mother used to sing a lullaby to us. It wasn't particularly what you would call educational. She sung two of them. The first one was called Straighten Up and Fly Right. And the second one was Dream About a Reefer 5 foot long. Go on, baby, sing that song. And we didn't know what a reefer was. We did not know what a reefer was. You know? But the context,
we found out.
Yeah, we found out. we found that out. But
found out. Ultimately, you know, but there are a couple of things that I thought about when brother Samuel was talking about artists. Let me just say, full disclosure, that my youngest is an artist. She has a tremendous voice, and I am biased, but it happens to be true. And she but I'm very careful about encouraging her to go into the business of music, because there's something about art that changes when you accept money for it.
Yes.
Right? Like Van Gogh was an artist, right? Mm-hmm. Because he controlled exactly what he wanted to express, because he wasn't being influenced by the monetary aspects of it. So I had, like, as a younger man, I had one foot in the music business, right? And what one of my mentors in that business told me is that, you know, people that get into the music business call it that because they don't know any better. It's actually the business music, because business always comes first. And therein lies the mechanism that defines artists. Right? They get defined and they get categorized by, again, we're talking about a system controlled by a lot of the very same forces racially that control the school system.
Yeah.
Right? And they want to determine how and in what way we influence our people. Now, one of the shifts now, I'm also, another hat that I wear is that of I'm an old-time record collector, right? And one of the things that I teach my kids about music is that from the time I started collecting records, and the first records that were ones that I inherited from like the 50s, was that these were independently made records that came out of specific communities that were promoted at specific clubs and played on specific radio stations. They were ours. They were independent. But when it came to light how much money could be generated from that, not only were those independent stations bought out, but these mega corporations
rose up,
were created, and the music industry was born, where we were being robbed of our intellectual property left and right. It used to be, now there were always things that our parents thought were dirty. There was music that my mother wasn't allowed to listen to. My mother told me she was slapped for singing 60-Minute Man in the house, right? That record is nasty today, by the way. If you hear it, you see, somebody was listening to it when they weren't supposed. I see you, Dr. Judith.
I never heard that.
I see you.
I never heard that.
Dr. Judith, you never heard of 60-Minute Man?
No, seriously, I never have. No, seriously.
Okay.
Oh,
right.
my goodness. Go on YouTube.
Let me just have to read it off.
There were rappers that refer to the record 60-Minute Man. And that's a record from the 50s, right? But I say all of that to say that that's part of you know, that wisdom of our elders to say, well, let's limit the things that you listen to. There's merit to that.
Yes, it is.
So let me just clarify that the reason why I said, okay, there's a certain catalyst, there's a catalyst of a certain type of understanding. Because remember now, music is born from an experience.
Yes.
Or music, art, you know, whatever you want to call it, poetry, you know, all these different things, paintings, canvas. You create things with your hands. You carve something out of a rock. It's born from an experience. And remember now, a genre is born from the dialect or the accent of that particular language where that style of music is from.
Yes.
So reggae music sounds reggae music because of the dialect of the people. Calypso music is calypso music because of the tempo of how Trinidadians speak. So you know, when you understand music from that angle, and then now somebody come and say to you, well, you can't listen to this because so, it's because of what the mind was conditioned to think that it was,
Right.
but it's something totally different to dealing with. So that's why we can look at Denzel and like Denzel because he played Training Day, but at the same time he plays Stephen Biko, and then he plays these other characters. But it's okay because now the catalyst is that now, yes, he is doing film. So, but the musician does not get that play away with there. So because of the understanding. So when somebody's doing a crime, you know, it's not that the music is making him do the crime, but it's the understanding behind it.
Yeah.
Or the conditioning behind it. So when they say, well, it's rap music, it's not the rap music, it's the understanding behind it that you think it, well, you know, they went and get a gun and they shoot up the place and all of that, and it's the music make them do that.
Yeah, it doesn't have control.
So you see what I'm saying?
You remember the movie The Harder They Come?
Yes, Jimmy Cliff.
I watched that movie about 800 times at the Duffield Theater in Brooklyn. And I took my brother, and you know, but there was never any, you know, we would, you know, oh, that's a bad man, that's a gun man. But I don't think, Lance, that you ever decided to come out on Flatbush Avenue with 245s and gun anybody down. I know I didn't. We were looking for the damn A train to go home. You know,
but isn't that because of how you were raised to some degree?
That's it.
Okay.
Do you really, or was it just common sense?
No. Common sense is not common.
Well, I know it's not common now.
What I'm trying to do here, people, all of that It's beautiful, beautiful conversation. But I'm trying to tie that in to how our children are influenced and how sometimes some of the things that they may do are considered negative. Too many times we hear people say to our educated Black boys, you sound like you're trying to be white because they're educated. Too many times their behavior is dictated by who society perceives them to be, who they're supposed to be, how they are supposed to behave. And when they step out of that element, they are not welcomed within their own peer group.
It's the same thing you're talking about.
To make other decisions.
But Curtis, no, let's be real. We're in the 21st century. Isn't it our perception of what is expected of us cause us problems? I'm sorry, I truly believe that. Because we have enough positive Black influences around us. We got a whole bunch of positive people like never before. But if listen, when white folks said we are 3/5 of a human being, they say all this stuff about it. Now we in this generation didn't hear it, but our grandparents did, our great-grandparents did. And we, like most generational garbage, generational curses are real. They're strongholds that need to be broken. And we are not breaking them. We're going from one generation to the next, expecting football and basketball and all that stuff. That's not the point. Our basic perception of ourselves are off. I don't know how many times I keep saying this. I said, listen, I don't care what you do. It's our perception. Because let me tell you something. I was called Blackie as a child. I wasn't called Blackie out of affection. It was a derogatory term. I never embraced it as negative, so I could get out of that. So until we stop saying what we're doing,
incorporate this. How do we counter that conspiracy, whether it's real or imagined to some of us? How do we counter that conspiracy to destroy our Black boys?
How do we decide to lose weight? Because we are overweight and it's injurious to our health. It's an individual choice. It's a daily thing. It's a battle. And I'm saying this until we take it as a personal thing and your children see you do it and they pass it on. People, that's the best way for people to learn. We can talk from here to eternity. The bottom line is we will copy what we think we're going to get something out of. We think that white people have something to give us.
Right.
It is a basic sickness. It is a systemic problem in Black people. We keep thinking that the white man, listen, when Black people get in a group, I don't care what nobody says, with no disrespect, we insist on this light crap. We still doing it. We still talk to each other with that crap in our heads. We still going on with this foolishness. Well, you light, and Black men still talk about that. A pastor said to me so many years ago, well, I have to marry up. Is a light-skinned woman he was talking about. Until we get that garbage out of us, white people will continue to do what they're doing. Listen, I don't fault white people. When I went to St. John's University, the Italian guy at the school in Mount Vernon said to me, would you like to go to my alma mater? I said, sure. He said, he took me to the school. And the papers were filled up, and I kept going from that. I went to Iona, predominantly white. I didn't care what color people was there. I wanted an education. But I never went in there and bought into what white folks was talking because I knew about white folks. I've been reading about them for years. The problem is it's a basic self-hatred. In our group here, I promise you, somebody will come in and see us, and they will say there was a light one, there was a dark one, until we can get over our own crap. Listen to me. I'm telling you, and I'm very passionate because something very personal happened to me in the last few days that brings this to the front for me. Until we decide it's enough. The white person cannot touch me. I'm telling you, I work with them. You know what they do? Every day I'm with them, they try to mess with my head. Until I told a white woman some months ago, I said, let me explain this to you. You were confused at birth. Do not think that you're superior to Black women. Leave me alone.
Doesn't that go? sorry. Doesn't that go back to the initial part of the show where I was like, this is labeling theory? We talked about this on colorism and in corporal punishment. We're labeled. What do we accept and what do we discard? But we're talking about children who lack the experience that we do as adults.
Karen, where did they get the
close up here.
Where did our children get the predisposition to accept it? Where did they get it from? Okay, I'm done. They were, because they're in the home and you're caught. Let me tell you, you favor the light one over the dark one. All that crap happens in our homes. And black people will not admit to it. And it ticks me off. We refuse to admit the truth about what we do, yet we want the world to be fixed. The truth is, if I don't look at me, I can't look at you. And for me, guys, that's the bottom line of my life. When I tell you, when something happens to me contrary, you know, the first thing I say, Judith, what's the lesson here? Until we start saying, why does my child behave that way? Why is this happening? But what we do is we point outward. Why are black people doing it? Why are black men wearing weaves that's pulling out the hair? Why are they wearing them longer and longer? And they're getting balder and balder. Because and then our daughters follow. What are the daughters? Listen, a 15-year-old in Florida died some time ago. Her mother took her to get a weave put in her head. And when she took her, it cost her $150 to do the daughter's hair. She got her hair done also. And then they go home and the daughter say, Mommy, something is wrong. And she's hitting her head. The hair was taken off the floor and put in her head. She died the next morning. You know, the mother said to her, don't stop complaining about nothing because $150 I spent on that. Guys, the bottom line is, if I can't say nothing to, you know why I wear my hair like this? It's a statement. It's not just freeing, it's a statement. I owe no man anything. And I mean that as sincerely as I sit here. And I'm talking to you because I am so burnt. I'm so burnt out by this thing because we talk about it. And then we have Mr. What's his name? That little crazy straighten head guy out there representing me. He can't represent me. The man with the straighten hair that come on TV. He can't represent me. Sharpton can't represent me. Understand? Because if 2021 you still straightening your hair, you ain't got nothing to share with me. So the problem is, I take personal responsibility. I will not speak things I don't practice. I will not. Because I'm sending double messages. The Bible says either you're hot or you're cold. Lukewarm is killing black folks.
Right. And you know what?
So hold on, Dr. Chase, hold on. I need for you to close it up for us. So you close out, Judith?
Yeah.
Okay, Mark Chase. How do we come to that conspiracy?
Unmute, Mark.
We are responsible for our children. Okay? We are responsible for our people. Be engaged. If you see a teacher, administrator denigrating your child, you need to be on it, beginning to end, and be on them. They work for you. You don't work for them. And that is, for us as parents, our responsibility. Okay, they have, you know, the police in a school. Each of us have the right to say, I don't want them there. I don't want them there. Okay? When your child is suspended for throwing a grape, you have to be in charge of that. and question it. So that's the only way. You know, it's the school to penitentiary pipeline is well documented because of things we don't do. Things we don't follow. Oh, yeah, I have, yeah. The teacher wants to see me, or I got a thing at home, but I got to go to work. Well, that's cute. You got to go to work. But that's your child. Okay? What do you choose? Now, I've heard a lot of talk about white folks and all of this, but this is on us.
Amen.
This is on us. All right? You go now, you take your child and you take them to the school and you show them what in the hell you gonna do. That's it.
Well,
closing statement.
Well, piggyback on something my brother said that to the extent that
Hold up, Dr. Lance, we're gonna bring it around to you. We're gonna bring it up. Okay. Allow everyone to close. I'll give you the last word.
Okay.
Samuel Archer.
I'm hoping that our audience could connect all the pieces, because from everything that we spoke about tonight in terms of the topic, we've been talking a lot about the symptoms, really. And what Mark just said is really, and what Mark and Dr. Judith just said is sort of like the seeds of the solution. So I'm just hoping that our audience can just, they're able to put that all together. So when I spoke about music and my perspective on it, where I gave you the scientific breakdown and what it does, and how it plays into it, where I spoke about the understanding, okay, there's an understanding, or that catalyst is there for where it's going right now. So this is all part of the symptoms, because we are not taking care of the most important thing. And I'm not going to take long. I saw an interview with Pete Rock recently. You guys know who Pete Rock is? The producer, Pete Rock?
Yeah.
Right, that Pete Rock. And he said when he was a kid, he took his father used to save all these records. He used to preserve vinyl. And as a kid, he took out all the vinyl one day and just put them all up in a pile. And his dad came and caught him. And of course, what the average parent would probably do is pull out a belt and spank the child. He said, what his dad didn't do that. His dad actually said, you know what? Let me show you how this really works. And he showed Pete Rock how the vinyl works. This is how you do it. This is how you protect it. This is how you hold it. This is, and this is what we have to do with our kids in reference to books, music, paintings, film. If it's fiction, if it's non-fiction, the parent has to be there with that child, so that if it's make-believe, it's make-believe. If it's real, it's real. So the fact that when you come all the way down to a child listening to a rap record, he or she has to recognize this is fiction I'm listening to. They're trying to make a point with this song. It's not real that they're talking about. This is not a literal thing. And they need to be able to understand that. So I'm hoping that that is what our show embodies tonight. That is my piece.
Karin Forrester.
Bear with me. In researching this topic a little bit, I learned some really absurd facts. From 1987 to 2007, funding for incarceration was doubled, while higher education funding only received an increase of 21%. The expulsion rate of students went from 1.7 million in 1974 to 3.1 million in 2000. School resource officers, who are usually police officers, retired or otherwise, are being used instead of the teachers being able to discipline the child or sitting down and talking to the children. They're being required in certain states to report to law enforcement the smallest of infractions. Something that would be considered just poor child behavior. All of a sudden it's reportable to law enforcement. I have huge issues with that. Or Black girls and or boys and children of indigenous background are receiving the harshest punishments. I'm having huge issues with a school system that says that a child, a 6-year-old, running around in a lunchroom with a breaded chicken in his hand and saying pow, 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 is being suspended. Or another one brings nail clippers or a little scissor, child scissor for artwork, is being expelled. I have huge issues with this in the system. And I know we brought it up earlier and we're saying the zero tolerance policy has gone way too far. Way too far. Where even the most minor infractions are being treated as if they're major issues by law enforcement. I'm not in agreement with it. I'm thinking that the policy changes have to take place from us as voters in our communities. We have to make the changes. Use organizations that are in place like ACLU to make these changes happen. And not sit and go from 3 million in 2000 being expelled to a 5 million in another 10 years. And most of those kids do not return to school. And if they're forced into alternative school systems. It's being run by private organizations.
Yeah.
And they're not getting the same quality of education that is being required in their community. And that's okay, that's not okay. And most of them don't get back into school. There's some jurisdictions where they're not allowed to go back into the public school system. In one jurisdiction I read about, 80% of the people who are in the juvenile detention system, when they got to court, were not represented by an attorney. What type of thing is that? That is all related to the zero policy thing that has to change. That's my opinion. I think and with it. That's it.
Dr. Lance Chase.
All right, so let me add. So
you're the one that did the studies. Tell us about your findings.
Well,
give us some solutions.
I'll put a bow on it. I think that a lot of the things that came up in the conversation, that you could draw a direct line to everything that everyone said to the phenomena, and we saw it from the standpoint of the relationship of people of color to the organizations, the organizational structure within the country does not support the advancement of our children. We have to be critical consumers. Well, we have to, one, be cognizant of our standing with regard to the organizations that we deal with. We have to be critical consumers of the things that our children consume: music, literature, movies, everything. And we have to be those protective factors, as Dr. Margaret Beale Spencer said, in helping them to navigate the complexity of what they're facing. You know, the thing, as you know, thinking folks as elders and leaders, we have to be cognizant of and connect all of the dots so that we can present a clear picture to our children of what they're going into and give them a map of the labyrinth so that they can get through it. And then going forward, we have to begin to become less consumers of this whole thing and become producers of our own institutions, of our own schools, in the way, in the traditions that have been, you know, we can look enough into our own history to see that in every community that each of us resides in, there are examples of folks that came before us that said, you know what, this system is not built for our children. We have to begin to put in place things and institutions that will actually support their well-being. And that, as Margaret Beale Spencer would put, is a protective factor. And that's my 2 cents.
I'd like to thank some of the listeners, some of the regulars for tuning into the program tonight. Lucy O'Brien, Sherry Ann Sylvester, Denise Williams, Yvonne Emmanuel. Also, I'd like to acknowledge some of their comments. Sherry Ann Sylvester said she's seen people like guys like Marshall Montano control and influence a crowd of tens of thousands, and she wonder how they do it because of the power of music. Freedom of speech changed the industry, which opened the way for the ultimate in forbidden presentations in music. Yvonne also said that the privatizations of prisons as a moneymaker is what causes us to be put into that pipeline and funnel into the penitentiary. I've also heard cases of a particular judge who was sentenced when certain evidence was unearthed that he was wrongfully convicting kids and sending them off into the prison system because he had friends in high places who had invested in prisons. Indeed, spiritual wickedness in high places. Thanking everyone for the comments. Thank you all for joining us. Now, for me, I always have 3 words that I would forever preach. And it's called lead. They are called lead by example. It's difficult when we try to teach our children to do one thing and yet still we are doing stuff to the contrary. We teach our children not to consume alcohol and illicit drugs, but yet still every day when we come home, we pour a drink. And that's somehow we think that's acceptable, but yet still the little ones are watching everything we do. They hear what you say, but they see what it is you do. And they will more follow what it is they see than what it is you say. Lead by example, parents. We have to know how to treat our children as blank canvases. And first, begin to paint the pictures that we would like to see them become. But simultaneously, we have to leave sufficient room and sufficient paint for them to grow and paint their own images of who they are supposed to be. Our children are not ours to control and to mold. We are basically the custodians. Young, beautiful souls that we brought into this world. They are not ours. It's our job to raise them, help to mold them, and give them enough ammunition to go out into the world where they can survive as adults. We have to continue to encourage them to be high achievers and not feel that they are acting white when they excel. Encourage them to associate with peers who pursue academics. Let them fully understand what this word that they like to use in school, a nerd. Let them understand that somewhere later on in life, some of these cool kids eventually go to the nerds looking for a job. Teach them that it's important to pursue academics, to pursue excellence. As for me, I'll take a little excerpt from a poem I wrote. It says, "Feel free to relax, mother, for your battle was won. For as a black single mother, you raised a strong, successful black son. And if that day should come when we meet again, I would apologize for all the times that I've caused you pain. Relax, mother. You did a good job. Thank you all for joining us. Peace and blessings."